China is officially arming Russia. Gunpowder, special chemicals, and critical electronics. All of it is going to Putin's military factories. Putin is actively preparing for a summer offensive. 50,000 Russian troops are stationed near the Kharkiv region border. And in Sumy region, the Russians have already entrenched themselves and are pushing forward. The GUR fighters destroyed an enemy military train near Zaporizhzhia. And in Crimea, there is panic. The occupiers are already expecting strikes from Ukrainian drones. Ukraine has brought back 1,000 of its people from Russian captivity. Moscow takes the stage right in Warsaw. Despite the protests, Morgenstern's concert still took place. Hello, my name is Yulia Kokhan. I'll tell you what's happening with Ukraine today. And let's start with some good news. Our captured defenders are home. This time, the exchange of prisoners of war was 303 for 303. This is already the third and final exchange in the format of 1,000 for 1,000. After the 24th, I don't know, it has never happened with Ukraine. Because, according to the coordination headquarters, representatives of the Navy, Air Force, Air Assault Forces, Territorial Defense Forces, National Guard, State Border Guard Service, and the State Special Transport Service have returned to Ukraine. All 303 defenders freed today are men, representing the ranks of privates and sergeants. They defended the country in the Donetsk and Luhansk directions, in Zaporizhzhia and Kharkiv regions, as well as in Kherson, Sumy, and Chernihiv oblasts. 70 defenders of Mariupol are also returning home. The freed defenders congratulated all the residents of the capital on Kyiv Day and tasted chocolate for the first time in 3 years.
We, the people of Kyiv, congratulate you on Kyiv Day.
Thank you.
Victory is ours.
We haven't eaten chocolate in 3 years. Now we're going to eat it.
Here you go, guys. Come on, take a piece each.
Take it! Let's do it! For Ukraine! Glory to Ukraine!
The 3-day exchange of 1,000 for 1,000 was the 6th exchange this year and the 65th since the start of the full-scale invasion. In total, since March 2022, 5,757 Ukrainian citizens have been freed. Another 536 people returned outside of exchanges. The coordination headquarters is already working on organizing a new exchange. This was reported by HUR representative Andriy Yusov.
Andriy Yusov. Today, the 65th prisoner exchange since the start of the full-scale invasion has been completed. Another 1,000 defenders of Ukraine have returned home, which means that since the beginning of the full-scale invasion by Russian occupiers, a total of 5,757 citizens of Ukraine, foreigners, men and women, defenders and civilians, have already returned home. And the work continues. We need to bring back every single person. This is a clear task and order from the Supreme Commander-in-Chief and the head of the coordination headquarters for the treatment of prisoners of war. The coordination headquarters is already working on organizing the next operations. Every Ukrainian must return from Russian captivity. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes!
Yulia Kokhan, we are happy that our defenders are home. We are eagerly awaiting the next exchanges so that every captured defender can return home. After a long pause, on the night of May 25th, the Russians once again struck Ukraine with an X-22 missile. This was reported by Yuri Inat, head of the communications department of the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
An X-22 missile was used, which had previously been used frequently. There was a kind of pause, and today we see that a Tu-23 aircraft launched such a missile. 950 kilograms is the weight of the warhead.
According to Ihnat, the distinctive feature of this missile is its use against aircraft carrier groups. Another danger of the X-22 is its extreme inaccuracy. The permissible margin of error is within a radius of 600 meters. President Volodymyr Zelensky also commented on Russia's large-scale attack on Ukraine. According to him, the silence of America and others only encourages Putin. The president emphasized that every such Russian terrorist strike is a sufficient reason for new sanctions. Therefore, Zelensky called on allies, particularly the United States, not to remain silent and to increase pressure on the Kremlin.
Sanctions will definitely help. Determination matters now, the determination of the United States, the determination of European countries, and of all those in the world who want peace. The world knows all the weaknesses of the Russian economy.
Well, the Russians have hit a new low once again. And yes, we definitely will not forgive you for this. Russia is preparing for a new offensive. The Kharkiv, Sumy, and Dnipropetrovsk regions are under threat. This was reported by the publication Bild. According to the German publication, the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin now wants 7 Ukrainian regions instead of 4. Supposedly, the refusal of US President Donald Trump to participate in negotiations only encourages the Kremlin to further aggression against Ukraine. To support this, the publication quotes the words of former German Defense Ministry advisor Nico Lank. Listen for yourself.
Putin never intended to agree to a ceasefire. He uses discussions in order to create military realities on the ground. Even during the pseudo-peace talks with Trump, Putin was planning a new offensive in June, which is now beginning.
At the same time, Lange suggests that Russia will try to advance in the Sumy, Kharkiv, and Dnipropetrovsk regions.
Russia will try to advance in the Sumy, Kharkiv, and Dnipropetrovsk regions in order to create new problems for negotiations, in addition to the 4 formerly annexed regions.
And what do you think? What are the Russians' real plans? Will Russia really try to advance into the Sumy, Kharkiv, and Dnipropetrovsk regions? The Russians have managed to gain a foothold in the Sumy region. Deep state analysts report that the enemy has managed to secure positions along the Veselivka, Zhuravka, Novenke, and Basivka line, and they continue to attempt to enter Bilovody. The situation in Lokhny is also difficult.
The defense forces have managed to somewhat stabilize the rapid advance deep into the Sumy region, and crews are destroying infantry every day and night. Infantry that swarms in like locusts, trying, despite heavy losses, to seize more territory. After all, after pushing us out of the Kursk region, their plan was to create a buffer zone in the Sumy region, which is completely logical and expected in this scenario of events.
The Russians are also bringing in personnel in the direction of Kharkiv.
A 50,000-strong army of the Russian Federation has gathered in the direction of Kharkiv. The enemy is trying to move its personnel closer to the line of contact and to carry out at least some assault actions. Chief of Staff of the 13th Operational Brigade, Andriy Pomahaibos.
Meanwhile, the head of the Kupiansk military administration, Andriy Besedin, stated that the situation there is not just difficult, but critical.
Unfortunately, the enemy destroys the community every day, launching an incredible number of guided aerial bombs, artillery, multiple rocket launchers, and FPV drones on fiber optics, which they use directly against the central parts of populated areas. This poses a threat to ordinary residents who, despite everything, still remain in Kupiansk. And it poses an even greater threat to those people who ensure the functioning of our community.
In the Kramatorsk direction, the Russians are increasing their use of artillery, while Chasiv Yar is now almost completely destroyed.
Over the past day, there were 207 instances of artillery use in the Kramatorsk direction, and for several months now, the enemy has not, in fact, reduced their artillery activity. That is why, by maintaining high artillery activity, the enemy is currently, in fact, not conducting any large-scale assault operations involving significant numbers of personnel or equipment. If we look at the city of Chasiv Yar today, it will soon be almost completely destroyed if it isn't already. Of the apartment buildings in the central part of the city, only 1 or 2 walls remain standing in reality. In other words, artillery is being used very actively and intensively, essentially without pause.
In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians continue to disrupt logistics of the Ukrainian Armed Forces.
The Pokrovsk direction remains the most difficult because the enemy does not stop trying, using various types of attacks to push us out of our positions, to disrupt our logistics, and ultimately to achieve the goals they have set for themselves. The Pokrovsk direction has never been easy, and to this day, it still isn't.
However, despite the enemy's constant pressure, Ukrainian defense forces are giving the Russians a hard time. In one of the key directions, the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed an enemy Buk M3 worth $45 million. And this is the first time that the assault motorcycle company of the 425th Skala Regiment has successfully engaged the enemy in the armed forces of Ukraine.
The motorcycle company of the Skala Regiment has already undergone its first trial in combat conditions. The result met all expectations. The assault troops on motorcycles suddenly burst in at high speed and stormed the enemy positions. This happened for the first time in the combat practice of the armed forces of Ukraine.
I was the second in line during the exit. My task was to cover the driver.
At night, using night vision devices without any lights, we sped through that section and secured our position.
Thanks to our speed, we stormed in quickly and, you could say, created uncertainty for the enemy.
They didn't have time to figure out where we were, what we were doing, and there was no concentration of forces. One arrived, then another, and we moved into those positions so that we wouldn't get hit. So we were already in cover, you could say, and could start carrying out our tasks. If we had gone on foot, we simply wouldn't have made it there.
That's when the GUR fighters took out the occupiers' train. Just yesterday, GUR drones struck a train transporting fuel in the temporarily occupied territory of Zaporizhzhia region. So friends, once again, I urge you to support our defense forces and donate to the military.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Meanwhile, there's panic in Crimea. The Russians are actively preparing for a massive drone attack on Crimea and are ramping up security measures on the occupied peninsula. This was reported by representatives of the Ukrainian partisan movement, Atesh. According to the partisans, a reconnaissance of an active air defense base in occupied Sevastopol was recently carried out. Atesh recorded that the occupiers are carrying out intensive preparatory work, moving mobile fire groups, inspecting equipment, and bringing in ammunition.
The occupiers are preparing to repel a massive drone attack on Crimea. Everything points to preparations for strikes on military facilities in Crimea, which they are clearly afraid of in light of the recent massive Ukrainian drone attacks on Russian territory.
Well, let's wait and see. We can't wait for this attack to happen. At the negotiations in Istanbul, the Russians, you won't believe this, demanded that 4 Ukrainian regions be handed over to them. This was openly revealed by the first Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Serhiy Kyslytsya.
For example, at a certain point, the head of the Russian delegation says he's sitting across from the authorized Ukrainian delegation, which represents the state and consists of high-ranking officials and military personnel from the front. And the head of the Russian delegation says, well, you know, essentially, war is when Russians kill Russians, with certain nuances. End of quote. So you see, essentially, that country is denying your existence as a nation. They're telling you to your face, you are not Ukrainian, you are Russian, we're just killing you. It's just Russians killing Russians.
Along with blatantly absurd demands, Russia is preparing a memorandum on a ceasefire, which it plans to hand over to Ukraine in the coming days.
Work on this memorandum is underway. Firstly, yes, it is in the final stage. And secondly, I expect that the relevant Russian proposals will be handed over to the other side in the coming days. That is the information I have, but in my opinion, it is unlikely that these matters will become public at this stage. After all, this is a negotiation process and a very complex and delicate one in many respects.
And while the Kremlin beats its chest and shouts about how much they supposedly want peace, yet another piece of evidence emerges that Russia does not want peace. Russia will receive 1,500 tanks and 3,000 armored vehicles in 2025, according to the commander of the U.S. Armed Forces in Europe. General Cavoli stated that such an amount of equipment will allow Russia to continue fighting despite losses for at least another 2 years. According to estimates, the Russian military-industrial complex will be able to maintain the production of necessary equipment and ammunition at a high level, significantly surpassing the output of the U.S. and Europe. In short, Russia's actions increasingly suggest that this memorandum is not a genuine peace document, but rather a smokescreen ahead of the next stage of the war. Do you agree with me? What do you think? Write your thoughts. And now attention. China is arming Russia. Special chemicals, gunpowder, and machinery are being sent to Putin's military factories. This was reported by the head of Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, Ole Ivashchenko, in an interview with Ukrinform. According to him, the supplies are specifically intended for military enterprises.
There is information that China is supplying machinery, special chemicals, gunpowder, and components specifically to military enterprises. We have confirmed data on 20 Russian factories.
According to Ivashchenko, in 2024-2025, at least 5 instances of cooperation between Russia and China in the aviation sector have been recorded. This concerns equipment, spare parts, and documentation. In 6 cases, there were large deliveries of special chemicals. The special chemicals, gunpowder, and high-precision equipment that Russia receives from China are used not only in the production of ammunition, but also in the manufacturing of kamikaze drones, missiles, electronics for guidance systems, as well as in the modernization of Soviet-era aviation. Ivashchenko emphasized that such deliveries are not isolated incidents or small-scale gray schemes. This is about systematic and large-scale support, which allows Russia to maintain its combat potential at a high level despite the sanctions pressure from the West. Well, what can I say? Such data is yet another piece of evidence that the Russian army is supported not only by internal resources, but also by external supplies from its strategic partner, the PRC. A host from Ukraine corrected graffiti of Putin in South Africa. A video is going viral online showing Ukrainian TV host Peter Zalmayev, while in the South African city of Johannesburg, coming across graffiti of the Russian dictator, unable to just walk by and deciding to correct it. He added an inscription to Putin, writing in red right on his forehead, "War criminal," which translates as "Voyenny zločinec."
Here, take a look at this mural. Good afternoon and welcome, everyone.
Something's missing here, guys. Something's definitely missing here. I can really feel it. I honestly don't like this situation at all. I just can't shake this uneasy, persistent feeling that something important is still missing.
There is something important that I need at this moment, and it is essential for me to have it in order to continue with what I am doing. Without it, I cannot proceed as planned.
I like this much better. Honestly, I really do.
Immediately, some locals approached Peter, who were clearly on Russia's side. They tried to interfere with the host and got into a conflict with him. But Zalmayev stood his ground.
And now, at this very moment, you are telling me right now that I am a criminal. But let me ask you this. Are you, yourself, truly, in any sense, a criminal? He is a criminal! I am absolutely certain of it! He is, without a doubt, a criminal! You have to believe me, because I know what I saw! He is a criminal, and there is no question about it! He is definitely a criminal!
In my opinion, I did everything right. And what do you think about the updated graffiti of Putin? Like this video if you share the Ukrainian journalist's position. A protest took place in Warsaw against the concert of the Russian performer Morgenshtern.
This is Russian. Don't support the war, don't support the enemy.
Morgenstern's concert. And here stand Ukrainians who hate us for this.
That they gave Russians power, that they let them speak, that they let them settle in.
The Russian rapper Morgenshtern came to Warsaw with a concert on May 24th. Near the venue where the performance was to take place, Ukrainian activists gathered with flags and posters. They called for a boycott of artists who have not condemned the Russian invasion. But the most cringeworthy thing is that despite all the protests, the concert still took place.
It was a real pleasure being with you, Warsaw. Thank you so much.
Let me remind you that the singer Morgenshtern still supports Russia, even though he was declared a foreign agent there long ago and left the country. I'm really curious, how can anyone go to a concert like that? For me, that's definitely rock bottom. Do you agree? That's real cringe. Polish presidential candidate Karol Nawrocki got caught up in a scandal because of an unusual gesture during the debates. A video from the debates is spreading on social media. In the footage, you can see Nawrocki at one point covering his face with one hand and bringing the other to his mouth. See for yourself.
We are building a special care and treatment center, a welcoming and supportive place for those elderly seniors who have experienced a harder life and who no longer have such good health.
Social media users immediately accused Nawrocki of drug addiction. At the same time, Nawrocki's campaign manager explained that it was a legal nicotine pouch, a tobacco product that is placed under the lip. But that's not all. In addition, Nawrocki himself invited his opponent Rafal Trzaskowski to take a drug test. An interesting story, of course. I can't recall ever seeing such cringe during a debate. What do you think? What was in that pouch? Write your thoughts in the comments. That's all for now. Give this video a like, subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes, and then we'll definitely see each other again.